Okay. Okay, I think it's going.
Is it?
Double checking. Okay, I think it's going. Yep, we're live.
Is it?
Double checking. We are live. So how have you been?
Me?
Yeah.
I've been alright. Not much going on, though.
So when we discussed doing this live stream, it was revolving around something that happened on my Facebook. Now this is really unusual because you and another person, I kind of want to try to stay away from naming names because I don't know if anybody wants to have that told or anything, even though
Right.
technically it's not private when you put it on the internet anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
so I had posted a link to Wikipedia's article about Project 2025,
Mandate for
and all I,
leadership.
huh?
Mandate for leadership.
Yeah, and I had all I posted above it was I hate it here, and that got taken down as Facebook said it was in violation of cybersecurity, which I think that accusation is pretty bizarre, considering what it was. I don't think you could make a cybersecurity claim against using Wikipedia in general. I don't care how legitimate or illegitimate you think that source anyone thinks that source is. As far as a trusted site goes, it's trusted in that it's not doxing or leaking personal information such as credit card numbers, social security, addresses, and that kind of thing. It's not a phishing scam or anything like that. So I think it's really interesting that they called it a cybersecurity violation, and there's the specific words that they used of why they thought it was a cybersecurity violation was along those lines that they thought it was phishing, that it was trying to get information about bank account information, social security cards, date of birth, etc., etc. I have screenshots of this that I can show. So we can go through that here in a second. But
But,
you, huh?
yeah, me and the other person posted the same thing, and nothing has happened yet, as far as we know.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of this. Like, I'm waiting to see what happens. But to me, it's just
You appealed it, right?
I did appeal it, and they decided no, it was in violation of their cybersecurity policy. A Wikipedia link to their
So an actual person looked at it and was like, "Yeah, this is cybersecurity. Deal with it."
yeah, apparently. And the only way that I can figure is that if that's a cybersecurity violation, is that they're talking about the people who published it, which is a list of conservative people that have been elected into office and very rich, powerful, elite people that help publish that, but also the Heritage Foundation. It's almost like they're saying, we don't want you to warn people about this or illustrate it as a problem, which is something
Or or we don't want you to oppose this. Shut the fuck up. You know?
Yeah, that's kind of where I took it. Maybe they didn't mean that, but considering everything that's going on, it's hard to believe otherwise. So I've got the screenshots. I'll show them here in just a second. So here's one. Okay. I don't know if you can see this. Do I need to do screen sharing with you?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Share. So now can you see that one?
It's small, but I can see cybersecurity, and then the rest is like small.
I'll read it out loud. Edgy Intellect says hello there. Hi, Edgy.
Hi, Edgy.
So, they said, we don't allow people to gather sensitive information or share malicious software. Examples of things we don't allow: getting access to accounts or data without permission, encouraging someone to give away their password or username, using phishing or malicious software to get someone's login information. And then they talk about your freedom of expression. We want you to share freely with others. We only remove things or restrict people to keep the community respectful and safe. Okay. I don't know why I have that screenshot. That's weird. Oh, it shows we remove your post right there.
Mm-hmm.
Our technology found your content doesn't follow our community standards. As a result, our technology took action. And it says right there, your post goes against our community standards on cybersecurity. And it shows this, it's supposed to say, I hate it here. And then you can see like the wikipedia.org/wiki/mandate. And so I ended up doing a, here's your post of it that has still not been removed. And here's what happened when I submitted, a request to look at it.
Yeah, because at first when it got taken down, you didn't even know what the fuck it was.
No, I had to go search for it, and here's me asking for a repeal. Okay, this gets into a different topic. But
yeah, your screenshots are like all over the place.
yeah, I can do all kinds of things though with this some weird software programs. So like I don't know, you'll want to see these other screenshots though that I have. I think that is it as far as the screenshots that I took there. Oh, there's this one.
What's that?
So this is where I went through my own history to find out what it was that post was, just to figure out, because I didn't know what it was. Like, all I knew was that it was a
Yeah.
Wikipedia link that said mandate. I had posted it back in September. And so I went all the way to September 14th and looked at it and saw it right here. It says mandate for leadership, 2025 PDF free download, and mandate for leadership, the conservative promise. And then I realized that's what it was. It was a link for Project 2025 for the Wikipedia article on that.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I, we got into this spat with another internet user, which this was a lot of fun. And I'm personally kind of concerned about how some people view
And
this.
I sent you screenshots from a person I was arguing with on Twitter about it, where it was calling me a liar and shit like that. I don't know if you saved them, but I did send them earlier.
I haven't looked through all of them, but there was a lot that you had sent me, to be honest.
I know.
Yeah, so this guy who got into a very lengthy little debate or discussion, which, I don't mind. I will gladly, I don't know, not always gladly, because sometimes it's very frustrating when people argue like this. But I have no problem arguing with people of a different political persuasion than me, and you know that. So, he says, Wikipedia is no more a dictionary or encyclopedia than I am a paid political pundit. The fact that any user can edit any portion of any article speaks volumes. The last edit was 27 minutes ago, and the editor has the opinion of describing what was edited or not. The fact that you think it is about becoming a dictatorship tells me you haven't read the actual book/PDF. Now, right there is very interesting, because I don't know how else you would describe it when, like, one of the first things it talks about is consolidating all the branches of government, the judicial and legislative branch, all under the executive.
An executive branch.
Yes.
All into one.
Yeah, how is that not a dictatorship? I mean, like, that's pretty much what Hitler did when he rose to power. He made some kind of weird policy maneuver that would make him, what was it, chancellor or something like that of Germany, like right off the spot.
He started out as chancellor because he was elected democratically into the system, and then he transformed the system, like through consolidating power, and I think it was through, I don't know if they have a Senate or not or whatever. I think they merged that power with the chancellor and prime minister or whatever, and then became the Führer. I think that's what he did. Something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but
yeah. So that says a lot to me, that somebody would look at that and go, oh no, that's not a dictatorship. He said, did you know a similar project book was released in the year Ronald Reagan was inaugurated, and I do know about that, but it did not outline what Project 2020. It was a little bit different.
Yeah.
And 60% of policies in it were implemented by him. Nothing bad came of that. I'm pretty sure that book didn't say anything about taking all of your political opposition and locking them up.
Or silencing them.
Yeah, that was like a big concern of mine and I've
Yeah.
got those screenshots. We didn't become a dictatorship. The aim of this is to institute policies that drive down spending, which, I mean, that's a pretty standard Republican thing to do for a long time. And I mean, some things on that I would agree on. Like I've said so many times, whether we regulate or deregulate really has to do with what you're talking about. Like I would never take the position of just flat out, oh, we should deregulate every single time no matter what it is, or we should regulate no matter what it is. Well, it really just depends on what you're talking about. And some things it's like, I think we do need to cut down spending. Like if you want to talk about our military budget, I would say, yeah, we need to cut down spending on military. Even if we took 20%.
I mean, I was reading something recently about like the Pentagon and the military. They want to use AI for like autonomous to autonomously kill human beings, and it's like, use AI for that? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, hold on just a second. I'm going to get some music playing. Put it on the screen so I could do that. For some reason, the controller wasn't working. Isn't that fun? Okay, so the aim of this is to but oh yeah, what I was saying about if you took 20%, yes, Josh, this is live. If you were to take 20% of what we spend on the industrial military complex, we would still, like right now as it is, we spend, I think, more than the next top 10 countries combined. And if you took 20% of what we spend on the industrial military complex and give it to things like veteran care or the SSA or foster care, they'd be hopped up on steroids. And
or education.
Right. So I mean, it would you could divide it amongst all the other social safety programs that we have, and they'd be like they'd have more money than they even knew what to do with, and we'd still be spending more than like the top 5 countries combined or something like that. Like we would still be the military powerhouse of the world as far as spending goes, even if you took 20% out. So like. Yeah, there are some things I would agree we do need to cut spending on, and there are things that I think we need to increase spending on. When you have only a 30% approval rating for disability, which is a historic low, like since the SSA's inception, since it came into being, the approval rate has never, ever been as low as 30%. And that's where it stands today. And it's about to get worse because of that House bill that we talked about later on after this post.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So where was I? The aim of this is to institute policies to drive down spending. We should cut back to pre-pandemic spending, which we already have, and people have actually some states have went even further than that to cutting people's food stamps down to 0 or SNAP, who were receiving it before the pandemic. So that's a little ridiculous. There's no reason for us to spend as much as we did during the pandemic when we have no need for the economic stimulus. I don't know why he thinks that. and also to give back to the states the powers designated to them. So what doing that is really bizarre, because I know this person personally, and I can tell you they are a gay man. And as a homosexual, I don't know why you would want to do that, because you're giving states power, like Tennessee, that just recently wanted to make being gay illegal again. Now, that didn't win over because the federal court system said no. And thank goodness. I don't know why you would advocate for such a thing. The Constitution states any powers not designated to the federal government are left to the states. Which, this right here goes back to what I was saying. Like, if you consolidate all of the powers of the judicial and the legislative branch under the executive branch, and as they call the alphabet soup, all under the executive branch, it does the exact opposite of what he's saying here. The powers will not be designated to the states. They'll be designated to the specifically the president. I don't know how you don't define that as a dictator, but whatever. But the federal government has gotten so large, so bloated, that it thinks that it has power over every single part of our lives, and the states as well. And I'm not really sure about that, to be honest. Like, all the states have different legal ages of consent.
They have different. They have different. They have different ages of consent and other stuff. So it's like how would that work federally? If the federal government had power over the states,
Federally speaking, marijuana is still illegal.
Yeah.
But there's still how many states that have legalized medical or recreational? So yeah, the states still have power.
I think it'll be a matter of time before all of the states just legalize it for recreational use and medical use, and then the federal ban of it will be obsolete by then.
Well, and then there was also that what was that? Here it was, HR 2811. In that particular piece of legislation, it talks about cutting a bunch of spending on social safety nets, like cutting funding to subsidize utilities and subsidize housing and SNAP and all kinds of other benefits that people who are disabled and retired get, which would it doesn't, I mean, he was correct in saying that it doesn't directly say that it would cut veterans' welfare, but it would impact them for sure. So indirectly it does, but maybe not directly, but indirectly, oh yeah, definitely. But a part of that, in that bill, as I was reading it, they talked about the Keystone Pipeline, and they were saying that they did not agree with Oregon or Washington State's decision not to allow the zoning permits to build it. And so they were basically flexing their power under their federal jurisdiction to override the state's decision. So, I mean, that's like talking out of both sides of your mouth when you're like, the federal government shouldn't tell states what to do, but the federal government should be able to tell states to do when it comes to the Keystone Pipeline.
Or pretty much anything else that they want that deals with fossil fuels.
Well, and that was the thing that really bothered me, too, about HR 2811, is that all the money they were cutting from all of our social safety nets, they're literally giving it to fossil fuel companies. Like, why?
It's like they don't need any more money. They have enough money.
Yeah, there's no reason to. That's corporate welfare. We
Yeah.
paid that tax money for our welfare as the citizens, not to give companies that have more money than we'll ever see in our entire lifetime even more money. And
It's like you kept saying over and over, like it's like, yeah, we have socialism in this country, but the ones who get the socialism is the corporations, not us.
Lothier Mordred, I see you. I'm giving you a shout out, okay?
Does he want to come on or something?
Um, that would be really confusing. I don't know. Like after I've gotten all this set up, that was a lot of work. You saw that I had to do that. I had to update OBS and then on update
Mm-hmm.
it, and then I don't know. I don't want to mess with all that. That sounds like
Yeah.
45 minutes longer. um, he says that he agrees that Trump has been acting a little strange and extreme recently. Oh yeah, I've seen.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, I've seen him where he says that he and this is the thing that like fascist dictators have done in the past is that they minimize their political opposition as being so bad that they need to be gotten rid of. They need to be silenced. So it's really weird when I see Trump standing up there going, he says, the radical left, the Marxists, the Democrats are bad and the fascists are bad. But the Marxists, the left, the Democrats are worse. Really? I don't know about that.
If he says the fascists are bad, what does that make him?
Well, but Democrats and leftists and Marxists are even worse than fascists.
He probably thinks anarchists like us are even worse than fascists. Who knows?
You know, we're horrible because we want we want LGBTQ people to make sure that they have their rights and that women.
We want everyone to be equal,
Yeah,
and to them that's bad.
wanting healthcare to be seen as a need, not a monetizable want or desire, is just such a horrible anti-humanitarian thing to do. So to go on, he says that this guy that I'm talking about read a good chunk of the book, and I can tell you that nothing in it resembles dictatorship. You may not agree with conservative principles, but that doesn't mean they are dictatorial. And I would agree with that. Not every right-winger, conservative, Republican voter I talk to is into dictatorships, and I mean, my grandfather, he's a Christian conservative Republican. He read Project 2025. He is no longer donating money to the Heritage Foundation because of what he read in that thing for himself, not because of what I just sent him an email and said, "Here, read this." And he was like, "Where did you find this?" I said, "Well, it's free download from the Heritage Foundation. You can download it yourself." And
Yeah, it's on their website.
he
Project 2025 has its own website. This is not a secret.
no, I mean, and he made the determination of himself. He sent me a private email saying that he has decided to stop sending them any kind of donations and giving them funding because of what it said in there. So this guy goes on to say, what is reminiscent of a dictatorship is what Biden's administration has been caught doing, which is pursuing social media to take down posts it doesn't like. That is what a dictatorship does. And I don't know that there is any evidence of that. Biden, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty much a doormat. I mean, he hasn't really done anything very interesting. He did codify Obergefell v. Hodges, good on him. He did nothing to protect the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And most of
And,
the
and it
things that
seems
he's...
and it seems like he's not doing anything about like codifying the use of HRT or trans rights or whatever, or our rights to use the bathroom as we identify or whatever else. I don't think Biden has done any of that.
Well, there has been some things that he, and I agree with you on that, but there have been some things that he has done where he tried to pass the Bill of Renters' Rights that him and Kamala Harris came up with, and the Republican Party vetoed it all the way into the trash, and thus rent rates across the United States went up by 46%. In the metropolitan area that I live in, that 46% increase caused 300,000 people to become homeless. And I think he's tried to do other things that, again, conservatives have vetoed, they filibustered, or I think there was one thing that Mitch McConnell was like, I don't know what you're talking about, like, oops, it went in the trash, oopsie daisies.
Mm-hmm.
So, you chimed in to this guy and you said in the document it says to ban pornography and exclude LGBTQ people from public life. And he said to that, I won't argue with you about pornography as it does say it should be outlawed. If you read the sections before it, it is because of the issue of child stuff, sexualization of children, and pornographic-like books that are being allowed in elementary schools. Now, I have gone over this over and over and over and over and over again. The books that they are calling pornographic, like I have given people links where they can have that read to them out loud, like My Two Dads and Me, My Two Moms and Me. And Tango Makes Three is a picture book about penguins. There's the Berenstain Bears, The Big Question. That's been banned and is a third-degree felony in the state of Florida if read in a public school.
And that is for if a teacher reads it. But what if a student reads it?
I still think it's a third-degree felony, I believe, according to FloridaLaws.gov.
So if a student reads it, then their parents would go to jail?
I'm not sure how that works. I would have to look into that. That's an interesting question, because I didn't think about, like, if a student reads it that's underage, what happens to them? Because they're not old enough to be prosecuted under a felony charge.
Because the Berenstain Bears is commonly read by children. It's a children's book series, you know?
And then and I don't know what all this... Child porn is already illegal. Like, we don't need to make any laws about that because there's already laws on the books that are heavily enforced. What there needs to be a way to report that kind of thing that occurs online to local authorities where it's being uploaded, which doesn't currently exist.
Yeah, because the current laws in place are not equipped they're not equipped to handle shit online. This is why stalking and other things just if it happens online, then the cops just can't do anything about it. Until something happens in the real world, the cops can't do anything. That's how fucked up our laws are.
Well, and the left...
Or outdated our laws are.
And I think the left has done a pretty good job at trying to advocate and ask Congress to pass laws regulating that kind of thing. But this is where the topic of regulation versus deregulation, is it bad or good? Well, when you're talking about regulations that make it so that something like child pornography cannot be easily uploaded onto Twitter, and that the only punishment they face is a ban, all they have to do is create a new account and they're back on. It's like, that doesn't...
Yeah.
These people need to go to jail and be removed from public where they can't produce more victims, not banned from a social media account.
Yeah, because they'll just... They need to go... They just need to go, like, to jail where they don't have internet access, you know?
Well, and you have to think, every single video that they upload, that's a video of a child's life that's been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's currently no way to ping local authorities of like where that's being uploaded. That doesn't currently exist.
No. Because where are you going to find the IP address of some random user with some weird username with letters and numbers? That doesn't make any sense, you know? Because Twitter is like one of the last sites on the internet where you can have complete anonymity, you know? It's not like Facebook where you have like your location and your real name.
So I want to try to get through the rest of what he says here quicker so we can, because I don't want to spend the entire live stream on it, but
Right.
I'll try to be quick. He says, as far as the LGBT, I'd appreciate it. This is interesting. I'd appreciate it if you'd reference the paragraph/section excluding them from public life. Well, that's cherry picking, as I have seen nothing of the sort. I have seen references to LGBT in document, especially about DEI, and as a gay man, I find DEI to be useless and racist. When equality was achieved, that wasn't enough, so they switched to equity, which is the opposite of equality. But again, nothing in it says anything about excluding us from public life. You may interpret it as saying that, but that isn't taking the document word for word, even though he literally just told you to ignore part of it at face value. And no president would do that, especially if Trump is elected. He's the first Republican to enhance gay rights as president, though I do hope he is not the nominee. I am not a fan. And that's, I don't know, all kinds of weird and wrong.
Yeah.
There are states that are literally passing anti-LGBTQ laws like all over the place.
Shortly before Trump was done with his term, he did try to pass some anti-LGBTQ legislation.
The Religious Freedom Act.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just recently, Tennessee tried to make it illegal to be gay again. There's laws in several states that say that if you are dressed as the opposite sex you were born as, then that is considered a sex crime. There are states that have outlawed drag shows. I don't know what he means that there's no evidence of, like, basically legal assaults on LGBTQ people. There absolutely has been. And Trump also, didn't he try to ban trans people from the military?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
So, I mean, you know, again, this is like it could never happen here. That's not going to happen. It's not going to be a dictatorship. They're not going to do blah 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 to LGBTQ people. My only response to this is, I hope you're right. You know, there's a chance that, yeah, that you know, even if Trump got into office, that due to the fact that we have three branches of government in different states and all these different elected officials in a dual party system, that wouldn't happen. But the way that so many of them talk, it's like, well, I don't know. This is not, in my opinion, this is not something that we should be gambling on. Like, why is that even on the table of, like, maybe we'll lose our democracy, maybe we won't, let's see. Like, that shouldn't be something we should be taking a risk on at all.
No.
So I hope the people who say that no, we won't lose our democracy, we won't become a dictatorship, we won't install fascism, Trump isn't actually going to lock all the Democrats and leftists and Marxists up and LGBTQ people up in a little camp and who knows what from there.
Basically concentration camps or whatever. It can't happen here.
Well, I hope they're right. I hope it won't. I hope
it doesn't either.
But
because if it does happen, there would be nothing stopping them. Because who's going to stop the U.S.? What country would be powerful enough to stop us? To stop our authoritarian government if it did all of that shit, you know?
Being the largest military powerhouse in the world, yeah, it's a very scary thought. I think if it does happen, I think every country should turn its back on the U.S. and not give us any resources and completely shut us out because, it's like, you want isolationism? Okay, fine, here you go. We're going to stop trading with you entirely and bleed the dictator out. I think that would be the best option to avoid war.
Yeah, because we don't need World War III over this.
No, I'm not an advocate of war in any way, shape, or form, so it's like, no, we don't need to do this.
No.
And I think a lot of people will try to escape the country, and I've posted actually instructions on how to do that for people in case that does happen. Hopefully it's not needed. Hopefully we don't need to. Like I said, I hope they're right. So, and that's what I say in my response. I said, I really hope you're right, and Cassandra and I are wrong. I don't want to lose our democracy or constitutional republic, as you might call it. This is a genuine fear of mine. I can't say with certainty that it is going to happen because I'm not a magic angel baby. Once a country loses its freedom, democracy or republic, it's really hard to get it back. I don't think anyone is teaching porn to children. I've taken a good hard look at the books that are being labeled as LGBTQ porn, and only one of them would actually fit that description. I am thus led to believe most people have not actually looked at the content within these books, such books as My Two Moms and Me, My Two Dads and Me, Tango Makes Three, The Berenstain Bears the Big Question, and many others, and I have looked at many of them. One of these is a picture book about penguins that's based on a real story from the San Diego Zoo. I think that's the zoo. I could be wrong on that one, but it's a big popular zoo in a big city. All those books are a third-degree felony in the state of Florida. Now we've had books banned from school before, such as the very boring book Catcher in the Rye. If a teacher actually read Catcher in the Rye, or
The Catcher in the Retarded Rye.
It wouldn't be a third-degree felony. They just got reprimanded by the school board. A third-degree felony, this is all according to floridalaws.gov, is usually reserved for car theft and the sales and distribution of illegal narcotics, which I'm against these prohibitions anyway, and we probably wouldn't have this fentanyl issue if we didn't have prohibitions, the prohibitions that we have. Different subject, though. Anyways, minimum sentence for a third-degree felony, and I've gone over that before. A lot of people don't even know the books that have been banned, which is going on in public libraries. So I go into...
Yeah. Because weren't like multiple librarians arrested?
Yes. And they challenged it too. One of them was renting a graphic novel for themselves.
Yeah, because wasn't one woman arrested for checking out some sort of book?
A graphic novel for herself from the adult section. So, Romeo and Juliet, what's the other one by Shakespeare? Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Great Gatsby, The Color Purple, all of Mark Twain's work. There's a lot of Gothic romantic poets that aren't allowed to be taught. Like, all of these have been banned. And
why?
They're clearing out adult sections in public libraries.
So why are books like by Mark Twain and The Great Gatsby and those other books, why are they banned? Why?
They say that it's
because The Great Gatsby is all about like questioning what is wealth and what's the point of having it. What does wealth actually give us?
Well, that's why they banned it, though. Like, pretty much anything that talks about the struggle of black people trying to obtain their rights and their freedoms in this country and talking about emancipation and whatnot.
Well, The Great Gatsby wasn't about a black man, but yeah.
No, but it's about questioning capitalism and wealth disparity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what their excuse is, but it's pretty obvious that that's the reason why they banned The Great Gatsby. I'm talking about the other books that they banned. Like, Hamlet was over incest. Romeo and Juliet was about teen sex. And so then you have like The Color Purple and To Kill a Mockingbird. Well, as I saw somebody on social media say, anything that makes white people feel guilty. I think that's the quickest and easiest way to put that. So I gave him too a link to my two dads and me, which I'm sure he didn't read. And then he showed me.
I did look at them.
Then he showed. Then he showed me a book that a congressman read out loud, and he was like, "Oh, there's all these bleeps," and he said, "This is not appropriate for somebody who's 14 years of age." I think somebody who's 14 years of age could read the book that's being talked about. It's John Kennedy reads a book called All Boys Aren't Blue. And after looking into that book, I realized that book there's more to that book than just that particular scene in it. That book grapples with a lot of issues that were issues that the LGBTQ community had to face when our rights were not recognized, especially being disowned by families and out on the streets and subjected to things like sex work and sex trafficking. And it's I think it's an important thing to read for LGBTQ people when they hit their teens, because I think once they hit puberty they can handle it. But it's it's basically illustrating what LGBTQ people had to go through in fighting for our rights, liberties, and freedoms, and that by ignoring our rights, liberties, and freedoms, it causes immense amount of damage to LGBTQ youth, such as sexual
Hmm.
exploitation.
Yeah.
So I also go over how the Republicans have a House majority. There's no radical leftists within the Democratic Party, not a single one. I showed a screenshot from Project 2025 where it talks about consolidating. This is where I'm really puzzled and confused, because he said, aside from Marxism being in our culture, there are areas, it doesn't say it's in the government, it says cultural. And it doesn't say different political persuasions aren't allowed, even though looking at the screenshot it says that that's what it says. It says the long march of cultural Marxism through our institutions has come to pass. The federal government is a behemoth weaponized against American citizens and conservative values. That's like the first thing that it says in that screenshot. That's literally meant to suppress, and Marxism or leftism is political opposition to conservatives and the right wing. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's talking about oppressing your political opposition. That's what fascism does. That's what dictatorships do.
Hmm.
So he goes on to say, he says, you're interpreting things that aren't there because you disagree. That's your right to do, but don't disseminate that disinformation just because you don't like what it says. Like, because I don't like that it wants me to be silent just because I'm a leftist, is what he's saying. I don't think he realizes that he's even saying that. And you're not just providing disinformation. Everything you've said regarding it has been a flat out lie. I don't engage with liars. Now, this is the part that I'm really confused about, because I don't understand how that's a lie. So here, like, let me read
It's
specifically.
like it's like, how are you supposed to interpret that? You know?
This is from like page 14 in Project 2025. It's not 1980 and 2023. The game has changed. The long march of cultural Marxism through our institutions has come to pass. The federal government is a behemoth weaponized against American citizens and conservative values, with freedom and liberty under siege as never before. The task at hand to reverse this tide and restore our republic to its original uh, moorings is too great for any one conservative policy shop to spearhead. It requires the collective action of our movement, which the quickening approach of January 2025, we have 2 years and one chance to get it right. Project 2025 is more than 50 and growing of the nation's leading conservative organizations joining forces to prepare and seize the day. The axiom goes, personal is policy, and we need a new generation of Americans to answer the call and come to service. This book is functionally an invitation for you, the reader, Mr., Mrs., and Miss Smith to come to Washington or support those who can. Our goal is to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state. How else are you supposed to interpret that?
Seems like a fascist takeover manifesto to me. It's like this feels like a playbook out of Mein Kampf. This is the American version of that.
And you have, I kept trying to figure out why he was calling me a liar. It's just like, I'm not lying. Like, I showed you a screenshot. That's literally what it says, and yet I'm a liar. It's like, I don't know how else you're supposed to interpret that. That way, I'm showing the meme that you sent me that I reposted. Everyone I don't like is a communist. Picture of Joseph Stalin on a sled with a little rainbow behind him. A child's guide to online political discussion.
and the Twitter screenshots. Because Donald J. Trump Jr. was like, if you vote Democrat in 2023, you're a communist. And then there was someone with fucking Stalin doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, how is that not what I just read from Project 2025? How is that not oppressing your political opposition?
Exactly.
And I think the left has done a really good job at not suppressing political opposition, but simply pointing it out. I mean, all these people that keep complaining about being canceled or being censored, they're still on the internet.
Yeah, because especially on like YouTube, you can say the most unhinged conservative shit, and YouTube doesn't punish them. They can say all the transphobic and homophobic shit, and YouTube doesn't do a thing to do anything about it.
Well, and I mean, like, you have the conservative twins. I mean, I saw one of them with, well, I'm trying to think of her name.
Ben Shapiro and Abby Shapiro.
No. It's Candace Owens. It was one of the conservative twins in Candace Owens. They were regurgitating the very, very, very old homophobic, like anti-gay talking point that homosexuality was a mental disorder, that it was a disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure that out. How am I a liar? You know, it seems to me that no, for real. That document is literally talking about oppressing their political opposition. That they don't like Democrats, they don't like leftists, they don't like Marxists, and it's like, well, you don't have to like us. We have the freedom of speech.
They don't like minorities. They don't like anything that's not conservative. They don't like.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not like you can't go and read Project 2025 for yourself. To anyone watching this or in the comments, you can go and download the PDF for free off of the Heritage Foundation's website. Really easy. It's page 14. You can read that. Page 14. Go read it. I just showed it on here.
And there's like 919 pages of it, of that bullshit.
Yeah, I don't have time to read 919 pages of that bullshit. But
yeah, not 919 pages of fucking fucking Saturday morning cartoon definition of evil bullshit.
Well, and he was trying to tell me that I was just repeating or saying what some left wing or Democrat told me to say, and it's like, no,
It's like, no,
I,
you don't get your shit from social media, political influencers, from like the left. You don't get your points from Vosh. You don't get it from Xander Hall. You don't get it from like Thought Slime. You don't get it from like um, ContraPoints. You don't get it from Philosophy Tube. You don't get it from any of these people.
no, I was skimming through it and read stuff in it that I was like, oh my god, this is horrible. Same with that bill that we were talking about, HR 2811. Like, he gave me a a link to a forum of some conservative in the House. I forget who it was. Some woman saying that the Democrats are lying. It's not going to cut veteran spending by 22%, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, have you read the bill? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, how could you read the bill and not know that it's not going to impact veterans negatively? It specifically talks about cutting funding to SNAP, to subsidizing utilities, subsidized housing, retirement funds, disability funds, Medicaid and Medicare funds. So maybe it doesn't directly say that it's going to cut veteran spending, and I'll give him that. It doesn't directly say that, but if you're cutting all those other things, it's going to impact
it
veterans.
it implies it's going to, but it doesn't directly say it.
So again, I didn't get that by listening to a Democrat tell me to just say that. I went in and actually read it. And one of the other scary things in there is it talks about cutting funding and making it so that companies do not need to get permission as to what they are going to be dumping into our drinking supply, into water supplies. And there's budget cuts on sewage treatment. So it's like these local governments, if they're not careful in how they manage things, a lot of cities could end up like Flint, Michigan, with poop coming out of their water, or water that's flammable.
Mm-hmm.
And
because of fracking.
I have no idea why anyone would think that that's a good idea. Let's not require that companies be inspected or get permission on what they're putting into a community's drinking supply. I don't know why anyone would think that's a good idea.
The FDA should come out and say, no, you can't do that.
Well, it's usually the EPA that monitors that. But I also don't know why we wouldn't want to do sewage treatment. Why would you not want that? Why?
Yeah. Do you it's like, do you want most of the populous places in the US to be unsanitary to the point where people are dealing with diseases that we haven't in like 300, 400 years? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
So another thing that I want to bring up, and like, so last time I made a video, I uploaded a video. It was about I had talked about chronic pain patients and not having access to opioid pain medications. And Chick Micken made a response video where he just showed me a little bottle of Narcan. And it's like, so first of all, what does that have to do with opioid pain medications? Because I'm pretty sure the overdosing problem that's occurring is from illicit opiates. It's heroin, cocaine. We found this illicit fentanyl in all kinds of illicit substances. Like there's actually a warning here in this city. They tell people, if you buy your marijuana from the street and not from a dispensary, be very, very careful, because we found cases where the marijuana had been sprayed with fentanyl. And like there was one woman that she reported that she was getting withdrawals after not smoking weed, and she's like, what's going on? I know weed isn't addictive like this. Why am I having withdrawals from weed, from pot? And so she goes to the doctor. They do a UA sample on her, and they find fentanyl in her system. And so she brings the weed in, and they find out, well, sure enough, the weed has been contaminated with fentanyl. So they strongly urge and encourage people not to buy weed off the street, to buy it from the dispensary. We've seen pills that are supposed to be ecstasy pills sold on the street that are have turned out to be nothing more than compressed fentanyl. And when you're talking about that much fentanyl going in your system, especially if you're opiate naive, that's an instant overdose. Right now, there's not a single person that's overdosed from pain medications, because pain medications are pretty much impossible to get, even if you should get them, because you have an incurable condition that causes mass amounts of chronic pain, chronic meaning like the rest of your life, not going away. There's so many patients that have been abandoned, they can't even find a doctor. So nobody's, there are people who have had brain surgeries and open heart surgeries where they're sent home with only 2 5 milligram Oxycontins. Like 5 milligram Oxycontins is typically what they use to taper you off. That's, even if you're opiate naive, a 5 milligram Oxycontin, which is only 5 milligrams of codeine, is not going to be enough to treat your pain. But they're doing this. There's opiate-free hospitals, opiate-free surgeries. They're doing open heart surgeries, brain surgeries, and all kinds of stuff, and they're sending patients home with Tylenol. And a whole bunch of people have died from bradycardia and tachycardia because pain causes your heart rate and your blood pressure to raise, and it can kill you. And so we're still seeing this mass amount of overdose. It's not coming from pain meds, though. That's not possible. People aren't getting pain meds. Where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from illicit drugs sold on the street. And like I said, we found fentanyl in cocaine. We found it in meth. We found it in marijuana. We found it in party pills.
Heroin.
Yeah. So my position on that is that I think that's, there are countries that have done this. They offer medical grade heroin to people with OUD, opiate use disorder, and the people who take use of that program, so they go to a medical facility and they give them their daily dose of it's medical grade heroin, 100% guaranteed. They can dose it out. They know what milligram dose you're getting. They guarantee that it's not going to have fentanyl or any other kind of contaminants in it. This is not guaranteed with what is sold on the streets. So this is why people have proposed to get rid of the war on drugs. And just because we're talking about decriminalization doesn't mean that by any means I think it should be popular. I would not encourage people to use opiates recreationally or go down that road. But the thing is that people are going to do these things with or without anyone's blessing. And the more that you scrutinize people with substance use disorders, the more and more they hide it from the world, and that's when it becomes more dangerous, because then they could overdose and nobody knows that they're using and needs to watch them, and in case they need to be revived or go to the ER or anything. So the stigmatization of people with substance use disorders is actually more harmful, sending them to prison or forcing them into rehab, Once they get clean, their tolerance goes down, and then they get out and they go back to using, and they use a dose that they're familiar with, and turns out their tolerance can't handle that anymore, and they end up overdosing and dying. That's part of the problem with that. And some people have said, but if we legalize or we if we decriminalize, then more people are going, like, then everybody's going to start using it. And it's like, well, it's illegal and people are already doing that.
So what is the point of it having it illegal in the first place?
Right. I mean, if somebody's going to use opiates, whether it be recreational or medicinally, personally, I'd rather them use an opiate or an opioid that is controlled and regulated by the FDA rather than one that is not controlled and regulated in any way, shape, or form. And you had talked about prohibitions on pornography, like prohibitions don't work. We could try to make pornography illegal. Guess what's going to happen?
There's going to be porn sites on the deep web and the dark web.
And what happens when you make pornography available on the deep web or the dark web in illegal spaces? What does that open up to?
Really insane shit. Like, not just child exploitation, but also bestiality.
Yeah. And that's the thing that we've noticed with prohibitions over the years of trying them, is that it makes things worse. It doesn't make things better. It makes things worse. You know, when they did the alcohol prohibition, it ended up like, you know, like people give me numbers like, let's say 75,000 in 1 year overdose from fentanyl poisoning. During alcohol prohibition, try 99,000 people a day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people tried making alcohol out of wood, which creates formaldehyde. That was killing people. The government authorized alcohol for the use of industrialized purposes, and they were told to do that. They had to put poison in it, thinking that no one would use it because it had poison in it. Well, guess what? They used it anyway, and a lot of people died from the poisoning. There was lead poisoning and several other types of poisoning that occurred during alcohol prohibition, and they realized they had to get rid of it because it was causing more harm than just having it legal and having people have access to a controlled and regulated substance.
I feel like the same. I feel like the same way is going to go with like whole banning on drugs. I feel like it's going to go through like the same way. I think eventually the government is going like, hey, maybe we should make all the drugs legal because it's harming more people than it's helping people. You know?
Right. So I think a lot of the people, well, Lothier, welcome back. I think a lot of people don't understand these aspects when it comes to the opiate epidemic, and it's like, yes, there is an issue with overdoses, and that has to
and it shouldn't even be called the opiate epidemic. It should be called the fentanyl epidemic.
Right. Well, and the reason why the fentanyl is there is because, well, the drug cartels started pushing it, which they wouldn't have business if they could just go to the doctor or go to a medical facility, maybe even walk-in clinic or create clinics where they could get opioids or whatever their drug of choice is that's controlled and regulated. I know that it seems like we'll never get there because this is the United States and it'll never happen here, but what in the countries where they have done that, they not like anybody who gets their medical heroin from these clinics instead of the street, not a single one of them has overdosed. And not only that, their crime rates have gone down because, lo and behold, apparently, when you give them a place where they can go to legally get their daily fix, they don't resort to doing criminal activities to support their habit. Also, the spread of intravenous diseases went down too. So it was just nothing but gain, just gain.
Mm-hmm.
So I got this pulled up on your screen, and I'm gonna put it up on the live screen so people can see it. As like this is um, a real story by a chronic pain patient and things that they go through. Uh, I found this by looking up on doing a Google search trying to figure out why is it so hard to find a doctor when you are a chronic pain patient. Because when you are a chronic pain patient, doctors will deny you service just simply for being a chronic pain patient. This literally happens. You can get discharged from the ER for being a chronic pain patient and accused of drug seeking and accused of having OUD or SUD. Why is it so hard to find a doctor? As someone with chronic pain, for 2 years I still haven't gotten any real medical help. And I read this guy's story and I thought, this is really heartwarming and or really not heartwarming, heartbreaking. And this is the type of stories that I want full able-bodied people out there that aren't chronic pain sufferers to realize what happens when you take their meds away, what it is to go through this shit. That no, you don't just magically get disability. You have to fight for it. It can take years. There are people that have been fighting to get it who are quadriplegic for 10 years. There's a woman I know that's bedbound. She can't get out of bed because she has spinal adhesive arachniditis, which is where your spinal column turns into a solid bone. Just basically, that's not how, like, literally, and just putting it as basic as possible. Um, it's the calcification of the myelin sheath that goes around the spinal column starts calcifying. So your spinal column is meant to bend and contort, and it stops doing that when you have spinal adhesive arachniditis. Very, very painful condition.
Hmm.
And that it takes me to no, I don't listen to Vosh. One of the things that Vosh said is just that he said that it's a bunch of people complaining that they don't get opioid pain medications for a little bit of pain. And it's like, no, it's not just a little bit of pain. It's a lot of pain. A lot. And these medications improve their quality of life and functionality. That's the reason for it. This can be done with a non-profit model. Even if you took profitization out of the equation, there's still an argument to be made for the medicinal use and purpose of the only true analgesic known to mankind, which is opioids. Tylenol is a true painkiller, but in a blind test between sugar pills and Tylenol, people couldn't tell the difference. So that's really scary. So this guy's story: the human body is very resilient and adapts to almost anything. I know. I live with chronic pain and have for almost 20 years, but I try to keep a good attitude and a positive mental outlook. Somehow I manage. Things can always be worse. No matter who you are or what you suffer from, I try to enjoy what I have and try to stay grateful. But live. In my opinion, the definition of living would consist of existing in a happy, content, personally fulfilled manner with a well-rounded life. Living with chronic pain can throw the balance off considerably. Some days are okay, other days are tolerable, yet other days are dark, gloomy, depression-filled days that I can't wait to be over and done with so that I can try again the next. When you live with chronic pain, it is very rare that you are not medicated with an extreme amount of medication. This usually consists of very strong a very strong narcotic or two, maybe an anti-inflammatory, maybe something for nerve pain, and then maybe even something for depression, as after a few years depression is inevitable and it becomes a whole new set of challenges one needs to deal with. As millions of Americans are painfully aware, narcotic pain relievers can and usually do bring along with them another set of issues that need to be dealt with. First, when you begin treatment, your doctor is convinced that he or she can help you, or at least he tries to get you to buy into that. That is up until the point that your insurance pays their cap. Immediately, the script comes out and he begins writing morphine, oxycontin, hydrocodone, Tylox, Percocet, and the king of opioid, fentanyl. Then maybe some gabapentin, nortriptyline, Lyrica, all of which will cause all kinds of cool side effects and withdrawals if you dare try to leave them behind. Then how about some 800 milligram ibuprofen or some other anti-inflammatory? Then let us not forget the prescription strength laxative, as the opiates will surely cause you to become extra irregular. And for us older guys who are already losing our testosterone, how about some T therapy, since that is another wonderful side effect of the narcotics. So now you are out of your mind on drugs, and no matter how many you take, the pain still comes shining through. Let's try some steroids straight into the spine. So they don't work? Okay, let's try some therapy, aquatherapy for instance, because any other type is off the table since you can barely move as it is. Oh my god, the water feels so good, but it only lasts as long as you are in the pool, so no more of that. The only relief you get from it all, and they take it from you. Okay, let's implant a shock box inside you next to your spine. Maybe, just maybe that will help. Nope, okay, sorry, maybe surgery again. Laughing my fucking ass off. That's why I'm in this mess, you assholes. Okay, well, now the government wants you off pain meds. Wonderful. So we need to get you off the opiates, but we don't necessarily know the proper way to do it. So just stop taking so many. What? You got me strung out on them and now you don't know how to get me off of them? No. 4 years ago, I owned a business. I was married. I had retirement accounts, a new Corvette, new WRX STI, a few other cars and trucks, bank accounts, friends, and a beautiful home. 3 years ago, my wife and I took a small vacation to Florida. It was really nice. However, 2 hours on the ground and I couldn't walk. Kind of put a damper on our trip. Now I have lost my business, lost my wife, lost my possessions, no more accounts, filed bankruptcy, lost my home to foreclosure, and currently being treated for depression and chronic pain. That is so debilitating. Sometimes I would rather fall asleep and never wake up. I can't walk, I can't sleep, I can't sit or lay down for any length of time. I can't work. I have been denied Social Security and fighting with them. My attorney thinks that maybe I will finally qualify for the $1,500 a month I have worked 35 years to accumulate for just this type of situation. However, the government acts like it is their money. I am 55 years old and live with my mommy. So to answer your question, can you live with chronic pain? Absolutely. A wonderfully fulfilling and happy life. What do you think of that?
That's very heartbreaking.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Nobody should go through that.
Sorry, I had to walk away for a minute. I was really, really, really thirsty after reading all that. But that's one of the things I guess people don't really realize is that for one, there are pain conditions out there that are pretty moderate, and yeah, maybe you could get by with Tylenol or ibuprofen. There's pain conditions out there, though, that are not just a little bit of pain. They're a lot of pain, and it's debilitating. Um, and the other thing, is like a lot of people think because something isn't an opioid, then it's suddenly safe. And that's not true. He goes over like all these other medications that if you try to get off of them, they produce withdrawals too. And they're pretty intense withdrawals, by the way.
Hmm. And the gabapentinoids that if you get off of them, they will cause grand mal seizures and you just die.
Yes.
Hmm.
Gabapentin steroids are pretty dangerous too. A lot of people don't realize that. Like, actually, one of the causes of spinal adhesive arachniditis is epidural injections, which is an injection of corticosteroids into your spine. And that can cause spinal adhesive arachniditis. You have conditions like complex regional pain syndrome, also known as CRPS. There's a condition where, like, every time you take a breath, it feels like a bunch of pins and needles are stabbing you in the lungs. There are people like war veterans that I know of, like a couple that were exposed to nerve agents, and you think a nerve block or a trigger point injection or a spinal stimulator is going to help them. No, about the only option they have is opioids, and they've been taken away from them. That is one of the biggest groups that have been affected by pulling opioids away from chronic pain patients are veterans. They've been committing suicide by the masses. Like, the suicide rate in chronic pain patients after they took away the opioid medications went up by like what was it? By 700%. And a lot of people don't realize too. Like, there's a huge lack of testing on the spinal stimulators that they can cause you to become paralyzed. And at some point, you kind of have to ask yourself, what is the rationale? Let's put wires into somebody's spine and electrocute them. Like, seriously, what is the rationale behind that?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, too, I think that gets overlooked is the fact that the opioids were the cheapest option on the table. Trigger point injections, nerve blocks, they can cost $2,000 for only 4 hours of pain relief. Same with Botox. Injections with Botox, too. If they mess that up, then it could paralyze, like, the entire side of the body it was injected on. That's a poison, a very dangerous one. Um, yeah, I just
Mm-hmm.
when I tried to fill a prescription for Lyrica, which is a gabapentinoid, um, it was going to cost me $1,100, and a prescription of tramadol without insurance only cost me $20.
Mm-hmm.
And then this thing I found really interesting is that because of all the patient abandonment, so you have all these patients with chronic illness, chronic pain, disability, very rare, very complicated conditions that nobody wants to touch. I found this out from a contact that I have. They said, this is why one of the top drugs the cartel deals is antibiotics. I did not know that. They said they are using the cartels as the medical system for the underclass, now increasingly, and disability is an automatic qualifier unless you have a significant other that can support you. We don't need to be putting people behind bars who have an addiction that is a violent, what is a violent criminals. That's what Lothier said.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I really wanted to do was this is how to flee America. Oh, this is Robert Reich being banned. His
That was
content got
oh
banned.
yeah, that was what he posted that got taken down.
Yes.
He didn't get banned, but he got censored.
Yeah, that's interesting.
He should make a video about that.
He might. There's still time. One of the things that he posted recently, he was talking about AI algorithms and technology, and it made me think about the PDMP and Nartrex, that local law enforcement agencies already have access to our medical records.
Mm-hmm.
And I really worry about the trans community and women on that when it comes to going out of state. There are states that are so aggressive in anti trans laws that they have um, literally, you saw in that thing that we were reading about that guy that his testosterone was lowering because he's getting older, and so well, there are states where you can't get testosterone even if you're not trans because they've just
Right.
outright outlawed.
Yeah. Because of the anti-trans bills and shit.
Yeah.
And they're punishing women and trans people for getting HRT or getting an abortion out in other states.
So one of my big concerns is that, like how they want you to turn people in some of those states, they want you to turn people in who go out of state to get an abortion or get transition care like HRT, is that with the PDMP that was originally designed to target chronic pain patients and doctors prescribing them opioid pain medications, that this is a big violation of rights there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Local law enforcement agencies do not need to be looking at your medical files, and they don't really
No.
need anybody to tell on you. All they have to do is use our XSAS dashboard, our JAMBA care tracks, Nartrex, and red flags people.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they can see on the dashboard, they can see what doctor you go to, what they're treating you for, what they prescribed you, what pharmacy you go to, whether you pay with cash or card. The reason why that's important is because if you pay with cash, they red flag you as drug seeking. And then they've expanded that to cover amphetamine based medications for people with ADHD and ADD, and
Yeah.
benzodiazepines for people with PTSD and generalized panic and anxiety disorder. And now they're expanding it even to cover things like gabapentinoids, like gabapentin and Lyrica. It's just they one of the things that really bothered me is that one of the drugs on the PDMP list that they track is testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
Just flat out testosterone, regardless of what it's being used for.
There's no reason for that.
No. There's supposed to be a thing called doctor-patient confidentiality.
Yeah. And because of this invasive AI tracking bullshit, it's like that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, did you know that there are local law enforcement agencies that are buying data from tech companies generated by an AI algorithm that collects personal data on you from your internet use and your social media use to build a character profile of you to try to predict crime. What they'll do is they'll purchase that information. They can't have the technology themselves because that's illegal for now. Um, and the left has tried to petition the government to say that they shouldn't be able to do that. And they say, well, they can because free market capitalism. And it's like,
That that's not free market capitalism. What the fuck are they talking about?
Well, I mean, they're hiding behind free market capitalism to rationalize a human right violation of your personal privacy. Like, this is what I love. They sit there and they say we don't want to be like North Korea, we don't want to be like China, and yet they do something that would make us exactly like those countries.
Yeah. And in the Constitution, doesn't it say we have the right to privacy? Because that's basically a constitutional violation, right?
Yes, it is. That's one of the problems I have with that kind of AI technology is that there's the Western justice is based on due process, on innocent until proven guilty, not we have an AI algorithm that says you're going to commit a crime, so we're going to arrest you like a.
Yeah. We're going to treat you guilty but until proven innocent, basically.
So there's violation of privacy, violation of due process, violation of innocent till proven guilty, a violation of unlawful search and seizure. This is one of the problems I have with ending net neutrality is that anything that you do on social media is not private, and the police, local and federal law enforcement agencies do not need a warrant to look at anything that you do on the internet anymore. They used to. They don't now because with net neutrality, the FCC treated you logging onto the internet like a phone call. So the only way that, local or federal law enforcement agencies can really look into a phone call or what you were doing on the internet before they got rid of net neutrality was with a warrant. Well, now that they've ended net neutrality, they don't need a warrant. It's not private anymore. It's not treated like a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
So what's ultimately being discussed with that is we're talking about a police surveillance state where they're constantly watching to make sure that what substances you're putting in your body are not necessarily medically approved, but government approved. And these decisions are being made by non-medical professionals.
The government shouldn't be saying what we should put in our bodies.
Yeah, that kind of goes against the bodily autonomy argument, doesn't it?
Right. Because why should the government tell us what we should and shouldn't put in our bodies? Because they're not doctors. They shouldn't be dictating on what we can do medically with ourselves.
Well, and I kind of see the PDMP and Nartrax as the beginning of this, is that it was almost like a test run of how that would work, but now you have, like I said, now there's already local law enforcement agencies that are buying profile data on people to try to predict crimes, and they'll station their cars out where they think the crime is going to be committed and wait there for you to show up so they can arrest you.
Even if there's no crime committed.
Yeah.
I mean, people already do that with swatting. Like, this is different, but like this gets people killed. Like, live streamers get swatted, and people end up dying if they just open up the door, and then SWAT team just comes in and shoots you in the chest or the head or whatever, and then that's over. Then your life is over. Well, because they think that some kind of hostage situation or whatever else is happening in that particular house. And it's even worse if it's somewhere if you no longer live there and someone else is living there. So someone else could end up dying over nothing.
I want to show Josh something. Lothier Mordred, I want to show him something.
Kitty. Kitty.
Okay, so Lothier, do you, this should be showing up on your screen soon. There, on the screen. See this? This is all the news articles about Tennessee literally trying to make homosexuality illegal. They didn't win, but they tried. They tried to pass a bill. It wasn't about banning people under the age of 18 from drag shows. It literally, they tried to make being gay in public illegal. They didn't win, but they tried. This is a real thing. These are all the articles about it. You know, here's an article from the Justice Department. So yeah, that exists. So here's another thing that I stumbled across that I find interesting. Paying more for basic goods this holiday season, you're not alone. A new report from Senator Bob Casey titled Stuffing Their Pockets, How Big Food and Agriculture Businesses Are Making Your Holiday Meals More Expensive, shows that the average family is paying over $3,000 a year toward greedflation. The difference between inflation and what businesses are charging consumers. Since 2020, inflation has risen by 19%, but staple foods such as chicken, pork, and potatoes have seen their prices rise between 25 to 38%. As Senator Casey concludes in his report, this type of greedflation will strain family budgets during the holiday season. From basic foods to regular household items, corporations are price gouging consumers, padding their financial bottom lines to enrich corporate executives and wealthy shareholders. But these increased profits are apparently not enough for those on top. Right now, corporate lobbyists are applying maximum pressure on Congress to pass a tax package that would cost U.S. taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars in lost revenue. That's money Congress should be using to invest in working people, not wealthy CEOs and shareholders. I don't think you and I dispute anything on that at all.
I don't think so. No. I mean, food's been getting more expensive for like years.
Well, the thing is, in my life, I've never seen stuff like this come down in price. It always goes up, 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 up.
Right.
And the concern is that if they don't come down, or the working class isn't compensated by higher pay, this is going to lead to a lot of people in homelessness
And starvation.
I talked to a woman who lived in the UK, and I showed her pictures of tent cities, and she had no idea that this existed over here. To her, it's scary and frightening. She had no idea, like people in Canada, people in European countries, they don't know that to get disability in the United States, that is not up to a doctor's decision. That is a judge that makes that decision.
And it's a really weird decision, because why have a judge do it and not a doctor? What's the point of a judge saying whether or not you can get disability?
I think it comes from the fear that people who go on disability are playing the system. And I think, if people want to open up a conversation about doing a better job at investigating disability fraud.
Well, I mean, if it's a doctor or a judge, if you go to a doctor doing it, if you go to a doctor, telling them, oh, I have this and this and this, and I need disability, the doctor should be able to look at you and be like, no, you don't need disability. Stop playing me. That should be a doctor's job, not a judge.
Well, and they're concerned that doctors are being... And there's going to be corrupt doctors that'll take money under the table to prescribe drugs that a patient doesn't need, or get them on disability or something. But the thing that bothers me is, like, why aren't we doing something about those particular people? Why are we punishing an entire group of people?
Yeah. There's millions of disabled people in the U.S. That's a lot of people to discriminate against.
Well, it would pull the rug out from underneath everyone's feet, and it's just, I don't think that's going to work out too well. It's, like I said, if we want to have the conversation about doing a better job at disability fraud, I'm all for that, and a lot of people don't know this. If you call the National Disability Number, the very first option that is available to you is to report disability fraud. That's the first option. Javier wants me to read something out loud, but I've already read out loud several things that he's put in here. He wants to continue on about, like, the trans bathroom and blah, 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 blah.
I don't really care about talking about that. Do you?
It's been talked about to death.
I know.
The stats are out there. You look at crime stats, like, LGBTQ people apparently don't commit very many crimes. It's like 0.3% or something. It's ridiculously low. And that's from a collaboration of all kinds of different law enforcement agencies, both local and federal, including the FBI. So, I don't know. So another thing we've talked about, somebody asked, I didn't want to touch on it. Someone in the comments section at one point said, tell me your take on the Palestine and Israel conflict.
Let's not talk about that.
It is complicated.
Yeah, we would be here all day if we were going to talk about that.
Well, it's indisputable. I mean, you could dispute it, but I mean, by definition, Israel is an apartheid state. The Palestinians do not get the same legal system that the Israel people do. The thing that I see not being talked about is the religious aspect that's involved. And I think that that's the part of that conversation that makes it so complex and touchy.
Yeah. And another thing, like, the only reason Israel exists at all is so that the Jewish people can have their own country, so that a thing like the Holocaust never happens again. That's why Israel was established. Because before 1948, Israel didn't exist. It was the Palestine Mandate that was ruled under the British.
I wish that they would stop fighting over there. They keep doing it over and over again, though, and
even if they have a ceasefire, eventually someone is going to pull the trigger again, and then the whole conflict will start all over.
My response, like, honestly, I think, and I know theists won't like it, but I honestly think a big solution is atheism.
Or at least secularism.
They're supposedly secularist in Israel.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think... because Israel is not a theocracy. It's supposedly a democracy, but it has right-wing authoritarian shitheads in the government because they took over the country after they assassinated the liberal democratic leaders. The right-wing shitheads took over. And that's when Israel became a terrible place.
Lothier says, you're not 100% right. Israel have been in there for the longest time already. They just haven't made a state since 1948. You know, it used to be called Judea.
Judea. But that was during the time of like the Roman Republic and Roman Empire.
And
the Seleucid Empire.
And then he says the Abrahamic religion is an Arab religion from that area, so all three religions have been based there ever since ancient times. Yeah, but there's scripture that puts the three Abrahamic religions against each other.
Yeah.
Like, specifically, like, written in their books. So then it becomes a question of...
Because in the Quran it said that it's supposed to eliminate Jewish people. I mean, that's why the neighboring Islamic countries don't want Israel to exist. It is because they don't want the Jews living there. They want Muslim Arabs living there. And the thing about like some parts of the New Testament, there's some anti-Semitism in there because the belief of of American evangelicals, they believe Israel should exist and should be ruled by Jews, is because during the end times, that Jesus would come back and judge the Jews for rejecting him and condemn them. But Jews have to be there for Jesus to do that. If there's no Israel, and if Jews are not ruling over Israel, then that means the end times will never come. And the Jews will not be condemned or whatever for rejecting Jesus.
So yeah, what it boils down to is like if we're talking about somebody who practices the Islamic faith and takes it word for word, all the hadiths and everything, then you know, I'm not sure just because somebody is into a religion that hardcore, believing in something in action are two totally different things. I mean, you know, you could believe that somebody can believe that you need to eradicate all of a group of people, but if they're not actually doing it, you know, they just have a horrible opinion, a horrible position, an unhumane one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, you have your moderate religious people that are like, they reconcile that, like, there are things said in religious texts that we just don't need to do.
Right.
I think there's something in the Jewish text that's like, well, the land there is sacred, and so there's been this big...
in the Tanakh, or the Hebrew Bible, it says that the land of Israel is their holy land.
And then there's a piece of land that Muhammad supposedly took off into the sky in his chariot that is sacred to the Islamic people. So
that is Mecca. I think that's what they're talking about. But
I don't think it's Mecca. I think it's like a piece of rock, like this rock that's there.
Yeah, well, it's a cube.
Mecca's a cube, yeah, but no, it's just what I'm talking about. It just looks like a piece of rock. It's just a flat rock.
Mm-hmm. But for some reason, Jerusalem is split up between like the second temple is split up between the Jews and the Muslims, and the Christians have their own church there, one of the oldest churches ever, and it's very intense over there, because in the second temple, parts of it is sectioned off for the different groups to, like, between the Jews and the Muslims to worship and do whatever other religious ceremonies, whatever. So parts of it is sectioned off. But I mean, what the Jews want is that they want the second temple restored, I think.
So I don't know how you like I don't know how you solve for that when I mean, this is all ideological.
Yeah.
I don't know how you solve that.
Right. How do you solve this without there being secularism?
You need it. At the very least.
Yeah. I mean, I think Israel has religious freedom, obviously. But it's probably not as secular as it probably should be, ideally, for religion to not be a problem in the society.
Gary says, what about Iran?
Iran? What about it?
I'm not sure.
Well, over there, the younger generation, that one that's more liberal, they want to overthrow their Islamic dictatorship religious government because they don't like it. A lot of them want to return to the Persian king, the Shah, because that's what Iran was before the Iranian Revolution of '79, when Islamists took over and disposed of the Shah. I mean, the son of the Shah is still alive. He's living in the U.S.
Well, and that's the thing. Like the younger generation of people of the faith of Islam, they tend to want to even ones that live in countries that are still ruled by the theocracy or monarchy based on Islamist theology. They seem to want to turn more towards democratic republic type structure,
and
and
that was what Iran was going to be, because Iran was trying to westernize from the policies of the Shah, but at the time the Islamists did not like that. They did not like the fact that Iran was westernizing. They thought it was westernizing too quickly, quote, too quickly, and so that's why the Iranian Revolution happened, was because of the westernizing that was happening. But I think it would have been a good thing, because the westernization of Iran probably could have solved a lot of the issues that's going on in the Middle East. And I mean, along with that, with Saudi Arabia trying to westernize a little bit, I think that will bring down a lot of the tension and the ongoing wars that's going on in the Middle East. Is if a lot of the Middle East just westernized and became more free.
well,
You know?
I think that's what a lot of the younger generations in the world of Islam want. They want to be more.
Well, they're not just Muslim younger generation. A lot of them are secularist. A lot of them are atheist. A lot of them are Christian minority. A lot of them are Jewish minority. A lot of them, and there's Muslim youths who are more liberal, but over in Iran, there's also Zoroastrian youths there too, who want to be free from persecution from Muslims. So there's that too.
Well, from what I've seen though, a lot of the roughly around my age and younger in the Islamist world, they've been talking more and more about being more moderate and less radical and less extreme, and getting things like women's rights and acceptance for the LGBTQ people and etc. etc. I think once they were opened up to Western worlds, for lack of a better term, but I think when they see like the freedoms that could be, they look at what's around them and they're like, this is bad. But I can't justify what the Israeli people are doing to the Palestinians. Like, I mean, if they were just doing this simply to only members of Hamas, it's like I'm still against death penalty, murder, but I don't think most people would be against if they were just specifically targeting Hamas. But the thing is they're targeting anyone that's Islam or Palestinian, even if they're secular themselves. And it's like, how is that defensible?
And the thing about like Gaza and the West Bank, on the border between that and Israel, Israelis are patrolling that and inhibiting Palestinian people from going to and from the Gaza Strip and the West Bank into Israel and back. They're restricting that. All the while, the IDF is bombing frickin' hospitals, grocery stores, places of residence. Entire families are being slaughtered. There was even one point where I read an entire class of students was wiped out.
You just reminded me of something. I want to try to show it. I gotta find it. It was on the doctor-patient forum. This is
Uh-huh.
this is a
And they're bombing schools too. Yeah, I just remembered. The IDF is horrible. And the thing about like Israelis is that all of them have to serve in the IDF one way or another. You have no choice. I don't even know what the punishment is if you refuse. I don't know if they have. I don't know how much prison time if they get prison time at all if they refuse to join the IDF. I don't know what the punishments are.
See, how is that defensible though? Like how can people say that that's an okay thing to do? These are not radical extremists. These are just Muslims. I mean, are people seriously advocating for like a Islam Holocaust? I mean, you know, that's have we learned nothing from history?
Well, and the thing is, like, this is what I have a problem with with the takes of Israel shouldn't exist because they're committing atrocities. Well, what if there is a state? What if there is a country known as Palestine that they're no longer Israeli Jews? They're now Palestinian Jews. What would stop a authoritarian right-wing fundamentalist Islam government taking over and wiping out the Jewish people that live there? What would stop them from doing that? And what would you say to the people that were like, free Palestine and get rid of Israel? What would those people look like then if the Jews there would get wiped out by a Palestinian government that had become a Islamist, fundamentalist type of government? What would you say to those people that were advocating for Israel to be gone and for Palestine to be in their place, instead of advocating for like a two-state solution where there is both Israel and Palestine, you know?
That's a really loaded question and hard to answer. Because seriously, like, what would happen?
Yeah, this is a loaded question and hard to answer because a lot of leftists that are advocating for the Palestinian genocide to stop, they're not thinking about these questions. They just want Israel to be gone and for Palestine to be in its place. They want simple solutions to complicated problems.
So, what would be the narrative, though, if the theocracy of the world of Islam that exists, like some place like Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, came in and wiped out all the Jewish people?
Or just if Palestine became fundamentalist Muslim, it doesn't have to be Saudi Arabia.
No.
It can be. I mean, they could fund. They could fund a Palestinian fundamentalist Muslim government. I mean, they could get funding from Saudi Arabia, or they could get funding from Egypt or whatever. But yeah.
So, tying in with what's going on over there, though, I wanted to show you this because it also ties into the chronic pain world. I think Beverly does a really amazing job. She's one of the founders of the Doctor-Patient Forum. But she covered this. Like, there are doctors that are going over there to help treat people and aid with, like, injuries from all the bombings and shootings and everything. And they're learning you really can't have a developed society without opioids. And there's doctors that are getting firsthand experience in that. So I wanted to share this with you and everybody.
Hi, my name is Bev Schechtman. I'm Vice President of the Doctor Patient Forum, and I just want to address an article that came out today. It is an article about the war in the Middle East, and it is talking about the fact that doctors, surgeons, are having to perform surgeries without anesthesia for different surgeries. I think they said C-sections and brain surgeries and limb amputations. Now, before we get into anything, I just want to say I am not making a statement about the Middle East. That is not the point of this video at all. But I do want to address the fact that people are having surgery without anesthesia. Now, I want to read a tweet that a doctor said on social media today. He says, in the Middle East, they're forced to perform surgeries without anesthesia. But in the US, they're choosing to perform surgeries in some locales without adequate analgesia. We are indeed reverting into a third world country. And he's right. This is what I want to address. So we often hear it said that, well, in other countries they prescribe this amount, or we prescribe this amount compared to the rest of the world. But the majority of the world they're third world countries. We have to drop morphine into countries that don't have, because we know that opioids work for pain and they need access.
That is something that a lot of people don't think about either when it comes to the opiate epidemic and banning these opioid medications. One of the things that we give in foreign aid when it comes to medical supplies is opioids, especially morphine for pain.
So if opiates are illegal, those countries are not getting them either.
Yeah, they're not getting the analgesia and anesthesia that they need over there to do these surgeries adequately. But that is one of the medical aids that we give to other countries is morphine, opioids,
Mm-hmm.
and anesthesia for surgery.
To have adequate, even a little bit of health care and compassionate care. But somehow in this country, this huge first world country, leading in so many areas, we've decided that opioids don't work for pain, and pain is good, right? Opioids don't work for pain. Opioids cause pain. Therefore, anybody who wants opioids for anything is obviously a drug seeker and a terrible person. And so let's just try to cut opioids out of everything. Opioid-free anesthesia, opioid-free surgeries, opioid-free everything, right? Because that's the ultimate goal. So now I want to show you a clip from Dr. Anna Lemke. Now, we know who Dr. Lemke is. We've spoken about her before. She is a psychiatrist out of Stanford University. She is a serial expert witness.
Wait till you hear this part. You know how like the common conservative argument is always go back to the past, go back to the past, go back to the past, right? Alright, listen to this part.
In opioid litigation, she's made between $500 and $1,000 an hour at various times as an expert witness. And I want you to keep an eye on her because she's speaking about social media an awful lot lately. And we just saw that the multi-district litigation against, I think it was 2 social media companies, has just been filed. And I suspect she might be an expert witness. Now, I don't know, but I just think that she probably will, or she has something to do with it in some way, because she's been talking about it for a few years, right? Once the opioid litigation went through, then all of a sudden, none of her interviews are about opioids anymore, and they're all about social media, right? So I just want to play a clip from Lemke to show you what that doctor is saying on social media actually is quite correct. that we're longing to be what third world countries are, and it makes absolutely no sense.
Force driving what prescribing is new narratives about pain. Okay, what we think of in our culture is tolerable or appropriate amount of pain. And basically, the narrative that we have today is that pain is dangerous. That pain experience of anyone, whether it's psychological pain or physical pain, leaves a kind of psychic scar that.
Hold on, like, I'm gonna do something real quick. Here we go. There we go. Oops. There we go.
Sets us up for future pain. The classic example is post-traumatic stress disorder, but also we have a whole bunch of new chronic pain centralizing syndromes. This is very different from how we used to think about pain, right? This is a very modern concept. In fact, 150 years ago, when general anesthesia was first being invented, some of the leading surgeons in this country were reluctant to adopt it because they believed that pain was salutary. They believed that it boosted the immune response, boosted the cardiovascular response. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We could no more say that to a patient today than we could fly to the moon.
Okay, so is it just me, or does she seem like she's longing for those days? If you listen to the rest of the video, and we'll have it linked in the show notes, she actually makes fun of pain patients throughout this entire webinar. It's actually atrocious. It's one of my least favorite talks, but it's the one I show most often with Lumpy because it's the one that shows exactly the kind of person that she is and exactly what she thinks about anybody who needs help. But later on in this talk, she quotes people from the 1600s about what they say about pain, and she longs for those days. She longs for the day people had to just bite on a leather strap or a bullet because, we had no anesthesia. So it truly is ironic right now that here we have Lumpy, who's considered a foremost expert, who is longing for the days when anesthesia wasn't accepted because pain is salutary, like she loves to say. And then we're talking about a war in the Middle East and the fact that people are having to have surgeries without anesthesia. So there's some cognitive dissonance going on here. Something it does not make any sense. And I'm glad that the doctor on social media pointed that out because it's actually so true. We have opioid-free anesthesia. We have opioid-free surgeries. We have opioid-free hospital stays. We have opioid-free emergency rooms. We have opioid-free everything. And here's the thing. All it's done is cause a crisis of abandoned patients. It's caused a crisis of untreated pain, and drug-related deaths have gone up from like 15,000 when they started this nonsense to 122,000, and they're just doubling down. So I do want to say this, like they did talk about in that article, people were having their leg amputated without anesthesia. Now I haven't heard of that happening in this country, but we have heard from more than one person who had their limb amputated post-sepsis and was sent home with no pain medication. Why, you ask? Because Tylenol works just as well, they say. Their limb was cut off. So somehow we find outrage when it's in a third world country, and we should have outrage that other people are having to suffer, right? But for some reason in this country, we don't seem to find the same level of outrage, and I'm not really sure why, but we're going to continue to point these things out to you. We're going to continue to put these videos out because I want to show you from their own mouths, number one, that they lie, number two, that they're hypocrites, but that they're pushing a very, very scary and dangerous narrative that we need to put a stop to.
Okay. I had to turn your mic volume off because, I had to turn the speaker, way, way up because it was dominating what was on the video.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think of that?
conservatives want us to go back to basically Renaissance or medieval times in terms of taking care of people, in terms of like taking care of their pain, quote, taking care of. Like, do we really want to go back to the time when people had mental illness, you were drilled in your head and had to fucking get the demons out or whatever the fuck? Do we really want to go back to that time? Do we really?
No, I'm pretty sure they were using opioids because they work. And we know the mechanism of how they work. They attach themselves to opiate receptors in your brain and block pain signals and slow down your central nervous system so they're not as intense.
Yeah. But I'm talking about like these conservatives saying like, oh, we should go back to the past. Yeah, you want to go back to the past where we took care of pain by drilling into people's heads? You know? I don't think we want to go back to that.
Yeah, this scary stuff, the direction this country is taking on many fronts. And a lot of people have talked about, like, what they're doing with chronic pain patients is copy and paste of something called Actin T4. That was one thing I wanted to show was screenshots from Dr. Andrew Kolodny's report in 2015 that led to the 2016 CDC guidelines. It's full of racist remarks. I mean, there's a chart, like two charts, monitoring, like, you know, that are supposed to be looking at reported cases of illicit opiate use. So, you know, we're talking mostly heroin there. But one chart said non-Hispanic whites, and the other chart said non-Hispanic blacks. I mean, they might as well have just said whites and blacks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally no one else. No Asians, no Hispanics.
No Native American.
No. Just non-Hispanic whites and non-Hispanic blacks. And according to his own chart, it showed that there was almost no use within the non-Hispanic black category, and there was a downward trend in the non-Hispanic white category starting in 2002 that continued all the way down to 2011, and then the report statistics from 2012 and 2013 were not even included. And there was a line in his report that said something about, like, it wasn't a problem until a native-born white middle-class woman was given an opioid epidural during giving birth, which is a pretty common procedure. I mean, literally, he's sitting there saying, like, yeah, we acknowledge that the rise in heroin use has been an issue, especially it really picked up around the Vietnam War, but they didn't care because it affected people who lived in ghettos. He used that literal word, ghetto, so he's talking about white people who live in poverty and people of color predominantly. And so apparently it wasn't an issue when it affected those people. It was only an issue until it affected like upper middle class white suburban people.
Mm-hmm.
How was this report used to create policy when it words things in such a way? Like, how could anyone look at that and take it seriously? That really concerns me.
Right. How can academia take this seriously?
Yeah. That's a big concern. And then, you know, you have people like that Bev was just talking about. By the way, I will leave in the description a link to the Doctor Patient Forums YouTube channel. I highly recommend anybody go there and look at it and check it out. Got a wealth of information. Support it 100%. Um, but yeah, this is bad, and you have doctors going over there to Israel and the Palestinian area to treat people who are victims of essentially what is a war crime, and they're finding out, like they just don't have access to opioids or anesthesia and analgesics, and then over here we're doing it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear that Anna Lemke woman talking about how we should view pain the same way they did back in like the 15 or 1600s.
Yeah. Basically when frickin' William Shakespeare was alive.
And then you hear people talking about wanting to get rid of the SSA and cut funding to all of our social safety nets and putting people in camps that they don't like. And it's like,
what kind of society are the conservatives trying to make? Like, what kind of fucked up society are they trying to make?
that's the thing. The people who say, oh, we're not going to be taken over by fascism, we're not going to be taken over by a dictatorship, it's not going to happen, they're not going to put LGBTQ people in jails or lead chronic pain patients, chronically ill and disabled people to their death. It's like, I mean, I don't think that this is something we should be gambling on, and all I have to say is I hope they're right. I hope it doesn't do that. I really hope.
Even if a Democrat gets elected in 2024, they'll just wait until like 2028 to do their shit. They'll wait another 4 years. All they have to do is just wait until they can just finally enact their frickin' backwards society that they want.
And that's another thing that concerns me is that even if Biden gets elected, and from my perspective, Biden is just a bump stop. It's just to keep the wrong person from sitting in there that would enact a dictatorship. But
right.
He can only
and
serve one more time.
Even if Trump doesn't get elected again, Ron DeSantis is probably going to get in there, and he will be a lot worse than Trump.
So, I hope they're right. I hope we don't lose our democracy, because losing one is a lot easier than getting one back.
It would take generations to get our democracy, our republic back. It would probably take multiple lifetimes to do it.
All right, so that kind of covers what we've been going over the past few weeks, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna say that we should end it here because it's 4:18 my time, and husband will be home soon. I still got to get some things done, but I think this all around was a good live stream, and I think we cover and we talk about things that a lot of other people don't. Not sure why they don't cover it. I'm not sure why they don't talk about it. Like when we did Citizen Go, nobody else talks about that.
No. I think Citizen Go is like one reason why the conservatives are doing the shit that they want to do.
Oh,
I think Project 2025 is under the influence of Citizen Go one way or another.
It wouldn't surprise me that you could still go to Citizen Go's social media pages and look at the things that they are financially funding. Their goal kind of falls in line with like sort of a
Christian theocracy.
Well, reestablishing like ethno-state, theocracy, monarchy, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add before we end it?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, to everyone who watched, thank you for joining. And with that, I'd say I'm out. We're out. Say bye, Cassandra.
Bye.
Bye.